Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to today's Microsoft Student Accelerator Technical Workshop Series. And we have planned a series of workshops or sessions on the first Friday every month. And we have a schedule of the topics for each of them. However, we may change from time to time, depends on who is available and some other factors. So in the session last month, we talked about the Copilot Studio, and today Varsha is going to talk about how to build a Power Automate cloud flow. Over to you, Varsha.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I'll just jump into it. I will have to apologize. My camera, for some reasons, not turning on. So you'll just have to pretend you can see me. So I'm just going to quickly share a slide deck. So hi, everyone. So my name is Varsha Bubathi, and I'm a low-code cloud solution architect. I'm in the same team as Stephen. And today, part of our Power Platform series, I'll be going through Power Automate and demoing how to build cloud flows. So as a quick recap, remember there are 5 different tools under Microsoft's low-code Power Platform. And if you've been following along our series, then you will remember we've already covered PowerApps and, as Stephen mentioned, Copilot Studio. And today we'll be doing Power Automate. So as you can tell by the name, Power Automate basically lets you build flows with little to no code to automate repetitive tasks and workflows across different apps and services. So you can do simple things like automate sending reminders or notifications, all the way to building more complex flows that uses AI. So within Power Automate, you have 2 types. There's Cloud Flows, which is what we'll be looking at today. And Cloud Flows is ideal for automating processes that involve cloud services, APIs, and online applications. So essentially, you can create and manage flows directly from your internet browser. There is also Power Automate Desktop, which is out of the scope for this series, but it basically requires an app that needs to be installed on your computer. And then that's more useful for automating tasks on your computer, such as working with files stored locally or interacting with more legacy applications that aren't in the cloud. So with also new transformations like Copilot, you can use things like Copilot powered by GPT-4 to do things like create flows using natural language, and then actually constructing more complex things, which we will see simply just by using written descriptions of scenarios of what you want to automate. So when you start building a flow, there are 2 components to it. So with the first being a trigger. So as you're running a workflow that is performing a specific task, you need a trigger so it knows when to start. So essentially, it's like a switch that turns on if a condition is met. There are 3 types of triggers. The first one being an automated trigger. So automated triggers start a flow based on an event that happens in a connected service. So these events can be things like receiving an email or creating a new item in SharePoint or adding a file to OneDrive. And then on the other hand, you have cloud triggers, which are similar to automated triggers, but they emphasize the initiation of flows based on cloud service events. So they interact with applications such as Office 365 or like Teams. You'll also notice it integrates nicely with other Power Platform tools, so you can build flows for your apps or your Copilot. And I'll also demo an example of that. And then finally, probably one of the more easiest ones to remember, it's scheduled flows. Scheduled flows trigger at a predefined time and interval. So these are more ideal for like routine tasks that needs to be performed at specific intervals, such as like doing daily reports or weekly data syncs. So that's what triggers do. They start our flow. And then to build the rest of the flow, we use actions. So actions are the step that a flow performs after it's triggered. These actions define the tasks and operations that the flow will execute. So actions can range from simple tasks like sending an email to complex operations involving multiple systems and data manipulations. Actions often also interact with various services. For example, you can connect to Microsoft 365, SharePoint, X, or Twitter. And as I mentioned, you can also build conditional logic that allow flows to make decision and execute different actions based on specific conditions. So it's similar to putting in an if or a while statement. So those are essentially the key concept for cloud flows. Really, it's just, I think, easy to just jump straight into demos and show all the things you can do, the art of possible. So before I jump to a different screen, just a quick reminder, you can get access to Power Platforms to build your own apps and flows using the PowerApps Developer Plan or the Microsoft Developer Plan. So if you click on this link, this article covers the different ways you can get access so that you can also go ahead and build. So I'm going to now share a different screen so we can jump right into the demos. Okay, cool. So hopefully you see my browser, and I'm just going to go into Power Automate, and you access that through this URL, make.powerautomate.com. So once you have your either developer plan, Power Platform, or Microsoft 365, you're able to access this page. And when you access for the first time, you will be directed to an environment called Personal Productivity Environment. So if you remember from probably earlier on sessions, environments are basically containers that have your data, apps, and flows in one specific place. You might want to have a separate environment for each project you're working on, or if you want one for a different stage in your application lifecycle management. So you can then also build those environments and then jump from environment to environment. I'm happy with where I am, so I will probably just work on from here. So you can see in the homepage, we're immediately prompted to build using Copilot, which will come to you in a second. But if we go into the left-hand side, you can see there are a few tabs that we can go through. For example, if we go to the Create, this is where we can see that you can create a flow from scratch using those 3 different triggers. And then there's also a few different ones like Copilot or the desktop flow. But there's also templates that you can start off with. This is a great starting point if you're new to Power Automate and you're not sure what you can do. So there's heaps of templates here that you can filter and search. There's most likely for a very simple task, something that already exists. So you don't even have to create one. You can just basically just I guess use a template and then configure with your own specific settings. And then there's also this Learn tab, which just opens up a Microsoft Learn, and here you can learn everything related to Power Automate. This is a useful thing to have saved in your bookmarks while you're building flows, because everything is in here. And then the final tab that we'll probably look at now is probably My Flows, and this is where you can see all the flows that you've created. And also you can start creating new flows from here, as well as importing flows if you are importing a solution as well. So, and then there's more here as well. There's so many other tabs. I won't go through all of them, but if you click on Discover All, you can see a little summary of what all these tabs do, and any that might be relevant, you can just pin it. So I'm going to go back to home so that we can create a flow using Copilot. Copilot's a relatively easy place to start because it does everything for you, and you can describe what you want in natural language. So here it gives you a few examples. I'm going to try and do, let's see if we can do a scheduled flow of an email that will send me events of like reminders of what events I have for the week. So I've already done this, that's why it comes up here, but you can also see as you're typing, it gives you suggestions. And then you can use that to write out your prompt and make it, as detailed as possible. So I'm just going to go with this one and then see what it does. A couple of seconds. So it looks like it's doing a recurrence, and then it only has one action, which is to send an email. So I can see that it's not really interacting with anything that would basically get the information for my events. So this is something I guess comes with more practice. So I can already tell something's wrong because this is too easy. All it's doing is sending an email, but where is this getting information for what events do I have? So I'm going to try and hit different suggestion and see if it gives me something better. And here you can see it looks a lot better. So it's getting a calendar view of my events and then it's sending an email. So I think I like that more. Oh, it changed again. So you can go back and forth. Actually, I think I like this one more. So there's a different thing. So this is great. You can get different suggestions and see which one you like. So the only difference here is like this little for each, and here it's creating a table. I think I'm going to go for this one. We'll see what it does. So once you're okay with it, you can just have to make sure the connection's all good. So here it's connecting to my Outlook, and this ensures that you have the right permissions. So it's logged into my Outlook and I can only access my calendar. So I'm going to create a flow and then give it a couple of seconds. And you can see that there are a few things that we just have to finish setting up that it says on here. So this is a new designer for Power Automate. You can switch back to the old one, but this one's really helpful because you have Copilot on the side, which you can just open and close, and it makes it really helpful for building your flows, especially if you're just starting out. So you can see it's pretty intuitive, and then if you even never use a connection, you can just kind of click through and there's already things that drop down for you. So calendar ID is just picking up which calendar I want, and then it's also pre-populated some of the parameters that are required. So you can see that it's put in this little function for me. And if you don't know what it means, you can simply just ask Copilot, what does this do? And you get that. So we know that it adds 7 days to the current date and time. So we know it's looking for the week ahead. And then here we can see, again, if there's something that we don't know how it works, we can use Copilot to just ask, hey, how do I configure this table? So here we can see this is just building a table from the outputs. And then another useful thing to have while you're building as well is the connector reference. So we know this is using the Outlook connector. So there's a connector reference here, which is on MS Learn, and it basically lists all the connectors and all the actions and triggers. So if we were to find Outlook, I'm going to go there. And then I'm going to find the specific action we use. So get calendar view of events. And then it tells me exactly what parameters it takes and description for that as well. So we can filter it if we want. And then we can also see what it returns. And here we can see it returns a list response, which we can also go see. It's important to note that it's a list, because basically what it's doing is that it outputs a list of items so that we need to compose a table so that it's all put together. Because if I otherwise go to try and send an email, so let's put this information in. I'm just going to put my own email. And here you can add dynamic content. So what this is doing is it's taking that output. So if we go back to our connector reference, we know that this is the output it's giving, a list of values. So this is that list of values. So if we wanted in our email to put in the event subject, I'm going to put that in. And you can immediately see it puts it in a for each loop, because as we realize, this outputs a list of values. And so it's trying to send an email for each of the item in that list. But we don't want to do that, because if I have 4 events, I'm going to get 4 separate emails. So I'm just going to undo that. Just take it and then delete that. So the really cool thing about this new designer as well, you can just move things around. With the old designer, it was a little bit more clunky. So that's why we're building this table instead. So we're taking those list items and then it puts it in a neat table for us. So we can put in a header and for first column called event, and then we can put in our dynamic value subject and maybe the start time. And just put that in. So then that outputs a table, which we can have here instead. So let's see. Actually, before I test it, one other thing that I want to probably mention is naming conventions. So you can change the names of these actions, and it's always a good idea to go through and give it more detailed descriptions of what each action is doing, especially if your flow gets complicated and you're using the same action multiple times. If I'm doing 5 tables, it's good to know what table 1 does versus table 2. So you can do something like event table, probably something better than that, but we'll leave that now. So I'm just going to hit save here. And then once it saves, we can test it. Take a couple of seconds. Okay, cool. And then we'll hit test flow. And then I'm going to manually run it. Flow. And then we'll go through this view. We can see we're getting all checks here. So I should get an email. Let me see if I do. There we go. And I have my email of events, and I can confirm that's true because I can just quickly go to my calendar, and those were the events that I just put in. So see how that easy that was. Obviously, you might want to go in and do things like format it better or add extra information, or you might not even really want to use an email. You can change it. So if we go back and then instead, let's see if Copilot does this. Add a Teams reminder. Maybe that wasn't probably the most detailed thing. So we can see it updates some actions, and then it also adds a new action called post message in a chat or channel, and then we can go ahead and also change it so it instead sends a Teams message. The annoying thing is it sometimes does mess up some of your other parameters, so you have to go back and change it. But also, if you don't like what it's done, you can just hit undo and it will revert. So it's easy as that. So because this is saved, I can just go back and it'll be fine. But if we were to go back to my flows, we can see that that flow exists there now, the one I just made. And here you can see details and, who is the owner, as well as share. So if you hit share, you can add another co-owner who has the same permissions as you. And then you can also view your history here. So if there's any that have failed, you can also click in and then see where exactly it failed. So maybe I'll go to a different flow I know that has failed in the past, maybe this one. So this one failed. I'm going to click into it, and then it will tell me exactly where it failed and the error details, so I can go back and fix things. Or also there's, documentation related to it as well. So it's super helpful. Cool. So that was creating a flow using Copilot. Super easy. Now, I want to create another one, and I want to include a bit of AI because that's always fun. So I'm going to go here and explore in AI Hub for inspiration for things I can automate. So we will be covering AI Builder in a future session in detail, so I won't spoil too much. And here I'm going to go specifically into AI prompts. So basically AI prompts, it works kind of like a GPT model, but you can customize it to work with a flow. So here I made like a little fun fact generator, and I just put in a prompt, tell a fun fact about item, and item is basically an input that it's going to take. So here my sample data is pasta. I'm going to test it. And you can see it's giving me a fun fact about pasta. I can put in penguins, test that. And it gives me a fun fact about penguins. So we can then use this in our flow and do various things. This is a really cool one. There's also an MS Learn guide, if I can just find where I put it. There we go. So this tells you what kind of prompts you can build and basically how to build a good prompt as well. So this is really useful as a source of inspiration. So I built another one, which my inspiration for this was basically I was thinking back to my own uni days, and I thought it would be cool if I could use this and basically build a flow that looks at a subject guide for a subject at uni and then just automatically get all the dates for assignments and put it into my calendar so I won't have to do it myself. So I built this basic prompt, which is extract the assignment names and due dates from this input that I provide and format the date as a date time value. And I also put in, if there was no date provided, use this here. So in my import, I basically just did this copy and paste of maybe what you'd find in a subject guide. And I pasted this here. Let's test that and see what it does. And you can see it returns the name of each item and the due date. I've also edited the output so it returns as a JSON. You can also have it output as a text. Let's see what that does. And you can see it gives in a much more readable version, but I'm going to stick to JSON. The reason being is when it comes to building flows and then using the output of this, it just becomes a whole lot easier. So that's what I'm going to be using. So we're going to use this to create a new flow. So I'm going to go create here, and I'm going to use an instant cloud flow just so that I can use a button that maybe I can add to like a phone and then just trigger it through that way. So we have a button here, and here is also where we can add an input, and this is probably where we're going to add our text input. So I'm going to put in text. So this is probably where I'll put in assignment text or like subject guide or whatever. And then here I'm going to add an action. So this already comes up because AI Builder is pretty popular. So I'm going to go under that. So this is like basically all the actions that are under AI Builder and AI Hub, which you can go and configure. And some of them you'll need to configure, like the one we were just doing. And some of them you can just use a pre-configured model to do things like, classify text or extract entities. So I'm just going to use that one that we made and I'm going to use my test one, not a creative name. And then here asks for my input assignment list. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to give me my dynamic content from this this trio. So I'm going to need to take the input that I will provide. So assignment text, I can just pop that in. And then from there, we want to create an event. So add another action here. Probably gonna look, it's easier to look for connector first and then see the actions, or you can use your little reference guide here. So I'm going to just look for Outlook or just maybe calendar. And then we can see it comes up with this, and then you can also use Google Calendar. There's a bunch of connectors. There's so many connectors. I'm just going to use Outlook. And then from here, we have an action called create event. So I'm going to use that. And then again, I'm just going to use my normal calendar. And then for subject, here we can see, because we formatted it as JSON, you have all these outputs that it automatically puts out. That's why it makes it so much easier. I didn't really do any formatting or anything like that. I just put in the prompt, give me the output of the assignment name and the due date, and you can see it's already done that. So if I were to hit on name, and again, it does that for each loop, because remember, it returns a list. And I'm happy with that because of it's going to create, multiple events. That's kind of what we want. So then for start time, I'm just going to put due date. I'm just going to use the same due date for end time as well. And then time zone, should probably use that one. And then I think that looks good. So let's try it out. So let's save it first. Yeah, so if you're using certain actions, you will get warnings. This one you get a warning because it's using GPT, and the results can vary. It's always useful to add like an approval actioner after. This is more so if whatever you're using this for gets shared with people, or someone else is using, because you want to make sure that the content is appropriate, that there is that human review that's coming. But because I'm just using this for personal use and it's my own flow, I don't really have to add that. So I'm not. Instead, I'm just going to test that flow. Going to sign me in. And then I'm just going to import. So I made this sample subject guide. I'm just going to put this in and run that flow and then see if it works. When it's done, we can basically track what it's doing. Oh, it's okay. My AI builder credits are done. Okay, that would have probably been because I've been using this to just set up my demo. So basically you have a limited amount of free credits that you can use, and after that you will have to purchase. So that's basically what happened. I probably should have checked that before. I can show you what it should do at a previous, using a previous flow. So this one's a bit more of a complicated flow that I did. And here I actually added more things so that I could just upload a document. So I didn't want to have to go in and copy and paste. If I had a subject guide, I can just, maybe chuck that in, and then it will go through and then it will pick this out for me. So for that, I had to use another AI builder action as well, where it recognizes text. So basically it takes in this PDF and then converts it into text. And then from there, it uses that text to then find where my assignments are. So it's pretty clever. It was able to find all these assignments here, these sample assignments that I have here, and then also the dates as well. And then once it did that, it was able to then, for each of those, put in an event in my calendar. So that is theoretically what it would do and what I'd be able to demo if I had the AI Builder credits. But unfortunately, I don't. So yeah. So the outlook would have just been, I'm going to see if it actually, I have a previous, okay, yeah. So you can see that was the outcome of that flow. I was just testing it around and I did it for 2022. And then once I'd run that, it put it in my calendar automatically. So that's you know, a really cool, interesting case that you can use that incorporates a bit of AI as well. As I said, there's so many other things you can do. So if we were to even go to templates, I'm not sure if there's a category for AI, but I'm sure you can look it up as well, AI Builder. And you can see all of these templates that use AI Builder. And again, you can go into AI Hub on your own and just play around with these, keeping in mind that you do have a specific amount of credit, free credit, and all these learning resources as well as the AI models. Okay, cool. So finally, the other thing that I'm going to show is integration with PowerApps. So, you know, this kind of shows how it all comes in together and why it's, you know, a Power Platform. So I'm going to go into PowerApps here. Then I'm going to go into this events app I built a couple of weeks ago. If you were in the Canvas app session, then you will probably remember this. If not, I'll give a quick recap. So this was the app that I built. It was basically a events registration app. So you can go into view events and then registers for specific apps, events, or you can add events as an administrator. But when we go to view events and then register, so I'm going to just register for this. And then that should work. I'm just going to check if that's added to my calendar, which is what I wanted it to do. So we were to go to May, let's see. And we can see that it's added this, and how it's done that is through a flow. So if I click on my little register button, and I'm going to expand this, this is our flow is running. So that's the name of it. And then I just put in run and then also specified parameters. And the way that's done is on the left-hand side, there's a little Power Automate tab. And here you can just add a flow directly. So you can build the flow on Power Automate, or you can create a new flow here. So I'm just going to open that one. So this one's triggered by PowerApps. And for usually these ones, I work backwards. The reason being that you probably would need to input a whole bunch of parameters. So for this one, again, we're using the create event action. And for that, we have a few required parameters like the subject start time, end time. So I know that. So going backwards, I will want to input that information from the app. So I put in an input for event name, start date, and end date. And then whatever is inputted in there, we can just add it to this as dynamic content again. So then once we close this, we can see that I can then reference what's in the app as parameters as well as the input parameters. So for event name, it's just taking this from this gallery, and then the same thing as end time, and then the start time as well, and the description, so that when I was able to hit that button, it runs this flow, which then adds it to my calendar. So yeah, so that's how, this comes in together with PowerApps. Really, there's endless amount of things you can do. I think a useful place to start is, having a look at maybe some of the connectors here. If there's like a service or tool that you use frequently, seeing like what things you can do in it. There's so many connectors here, links to Microsoft services as well as like external ones, third-party ones, and then also seeing what everyday things you can try and automate, and then using like the templates within Power Automate as well. And really from there, it's just building, and you saw how easy it was with Copilot as well. So makes it really useful. And as I mentioned before, another place to always start building is also using the Learn, MS Learn. There's all these, things like including best practices, and also something that is probably really important is using solutions. And it's basically a way to like package and share your flows from different environments, or if you want to share it to a different user. So all these exist on MS Learn, and it's a really great way to start. And then you can also do certificates for that as well. So that's what I had to demo, and probably going to quickly stop sharing. I did not check if there was, was not able to check the chat, but I'm going to quickly see if there was any questions.